Hey everybody, this is Johnny from Lionstown, and I just want to talk to you a little bit about personal finance and financial literacy. So this is actually a topic that is really important to me because I had a horrible time with money. I had a horrible mindset about money. I had horrible money practices. I was so bad. When I was growing up, I saw student loans as income. That's how bad it was. And got in a massive amount of debt, had to declare bankruptcy when I was 22 years old, and didn't actually understand the way money worked and get myself out of the debt cycle and into earning money while I slept until I was 37 years old. And it's so important to me because once I found out, I just had to tell everybody I could, and it's helped my clients so much to be able to jump levels from just making little baby steps to seeing what the end looks like and figuring out how to get there quicker, which you can only do from having the experience of somebody who's done it before, which is such a cool place to be able to help others with that. Speaking of which, we actually have a free webinar coming up on financial independence and financial literacy and personal finance coming up. There's a link down in the description below for that free webinar. Go ahead and click that, sign up, register. It's totally free. And we're going to dive deeper on this topic and a bunch of associated topics. So we can only go so deep in this beginning intro video. And because there's so many topics around personal finance and financial literacy, it's actually really exciting. And so click the link, join that webinar, and we can go deeper together in the future. So we know there's different levels of wealth, right? There's poor, middle class, and then there's rich, right? Upper class and rich. Let's just go with rich because that's where I want to be. That's all I think about. But the interesting thing is each one of these levels, poor, middle class, and rich, right? Not only are they separated by their income levels and how much money they have, but they also have their own mindsets, their own ways of thinking about money and in life in general usually. And they have their own energy and habits. And what's really powerful is they have their own language. There is a language of the poor, a language of the middle class, and a language of the rich, which is very interesting because, the words that we say are very powerful. They're a reflection of our inner thoughts, of the programs that we're running in the back of our heads. And a lot of our programs, they came from childhood. So they came from our parents. They came from the people around us when we were in our formative years. And like me, I grew up with a very poor mindset, and you could hear it in the languages I used. Everything was too expensive, too much. One day, maybe I could, what if this happens, that kind of stuff. Very poor mindset in my head. And I had to break that cycle. And it took me, like I said, until I was 37 to be able to actually do that. And the really cool part about this is when we know that poor, middle class, and rich all have their own lifestyles, but they also have their own energy and they have their own language even, is that we can start to put those principles to work for us. We can recognize where we're at now and start to adopt some of those practices and start changing our attitude and our thoughts about money and about wealth, which is really cool. So let's talk about these different levels and kind of where their focus is at. So the different levels, poor, middle class, and rich, if we equate that to how we use money, the poor, what keeps people poor is debt, right? It's bad debt. That's not a shocker. Everybody knows that, right? When you're poor, when you're living paycheck to paycheck, which actually lots of people live paycheck to paycheck, but when you're living paycheck to paycheck and it's hard to pay your bills and you don't have a lot of income, let's classify that as poor. And let's say that most of the time we're in debt, right? So my family was horrible with like credit cards. They had not only the normal credit cards, also student loans, and also like store credit cards. Like I remember it was a big thing for my grandparents to have like a Macy's card or a JCPenney's card or these different store cards. And they had so many different credit cards because they couldn't afford the things they were buying, right? That's what the point of credit cards when you're at that level. You can use them for a different thing when you're at a different level. But at that level, that's what credit cards are for. They're giving you credit, money that you don't have to go buy things you don't need that you can't afford. And then you're going to have to pay interest on it forever. It's crazy. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. It is so powerful. And when you get in debt, you're paying compound interest. This means that the things you buy are going to cost double or triple the price when you're done. And it's such a destructive thing. In America, when we turn 18, we're given a credit card. Like Apply now. I get credit card offers all the time. My daughter turned 18 not too long ago. She gets credit card offers all the time. They just want to get you in debt as soon as possible. Think about a mortgage, car loan, credit cards. We're in debt right away. It's so crazy, and it can be a really big problem if you're not taught the values of money and the principles of money, which we're not taught in school. So it can be really hard. So when we're poor and we think about poor folks, they're usually in debt because they bought stuff that they could not afford, and they do that through credit. And that is what we got to get rid of first. The next level is getting debt free, right? So it's getting rid of all bad debt. I'll tell you what bad and good debt is later, but we want to get rid of all bad debt. So we're going to start with any credit cards, any loans on things that are costing us money. Let's start with credit cards anyway, like store credit cards, traditional credit cards, and we can talk more a little bit about loans and things like that, whether they're good or bad debt. So the first step for that is getting out of debt, and that's usually the focus of the middle class, is getting completely out of debt. Paying cash for a car is like a huge milestone for middle class, is paying cash for a car rather than paying getting a car loan, because when you get a car loan, a car is not making you money. So the definition of a liability or an asset, these are the two parts of personal finance. When you buy something, it's either a liability or an asset. Liability costs you money, asset makes you money. So a car does not make you money. It gets you where you need to be to make money, right? It gets you to work maybe, but it doesn't make you any money. So that's a liability. So if we get a loan, if we finance anything that costs us money, that is bad debt. So we want to get out of that as much as possible. We want to get rid of any credit card debt. We want to get out of most loans. That includes auto loans as soon as we possibly can. And there's some finite things in there that we can talk about when's a good time to take that bigger step. But the first part is getting out of debt. That's what the middle class focus on. Then when we get to upper class, then we talk about using good debt. And good debt is using debt to buy things that make us money. So that's things like real estate. I'm a real estate investor. You use mortgages to buy properties that you couldn't afford yourself, and that property actually makes more money than the mortgage. That's good debt, because I couldn't buy it any other way, but it actually brings me money every month. Even though I'm having to pay a mortgage, it brings me a little bit more than that. Maybe it's not a ton because I have a mortgage on it, but it's making me money. That's good debt. That's buying assets with debt. That's good debt. And there's so much here that I just want to talk about. You can tell I'm very passionate about this. I'll just keep diving deep all day. Okay, so I got to get back on focus. So middle class is all about getting rid of debt. Now, upper class is starting to use good debt to buy things that actually make them money. And that's a really good practice. Once you get there, that's a big step up. That's a big change. And then when we focus on the rich, the thing about the rich that they do that's different than everybody else is they figured out how to separate their time from their money and their money from their time. And so they make money while they sleep, and they make money in things that don't require an hourly wage. So rather than being an employee where you get paid, maybe even you get paid really well, let's say you get paid $50 an hour, you still have to put in time in order to make money. The rich, what they do is they invest in things that make money for them regardless of whether they're at their desk or not, right? And that is when you get truly free. When you get to a point where you're making money regardless of your time and it's separated from it. That's where we're at. And the ultimate goal of financial independence is to get to a place where you're financially free. And financially free means that your assets, your investments, pay for your lifestyle. So the things that you invest in are paying for your lifestyle without you having to go to work. So once your investments pay for your lifestyle, you're now financially free. You can choose to work, you can choose not to work, whatever you want. That's the goal we want to get to. And what that allows you to do is be separated from your time. So having your money separated from your time is not only a step to get there, but it's also the ultimate goal. Now your money is working for you, whether you're at work or not. Your money is always generating. So you want to make money while you're sleeping, essentially, which is really cool. So I guess to start, the first thing we want to do if you haven't started anywhere is we got to budget. So we got to know what our inputs are and what our outputs are, and we have to really have a real honest, clear picture of how much money we got coming in and how much money we got going out, where it's coming in from and where it's going out to. So we actually put together a real simple budget calculator, my free gift to you. That's down below in the description. Just click the link and that will get you to our template, which is a simple budget. It's a simple input and output calculator. It tells how much money you got coming in from which sources, how much money is going out to which sources, and how much money you are keeping every month and where you're putting that. So go ahead and click that down below in the description. Go ahead and click the link and get your free budget calculator, which is super helpful if you haven't started there yet. So start with the budget. We know what's coming in and we know what's going out. We know how much left is going to us, which is the most important part. So if you're in debt now, and most people are, almost all Americans are in debt, right? If you're in bad debt, there's a couple different options for getting out of there. We've got the debt snowball, we've got debt consolidation loans, and we've got a different focus on energy. One big thing, we can dive into each one of these in depth in another video because they're so important, but just for a glimpse, debt snowball essentially is, this is where I recommend starting first, is take your debt that you have that has the highest interest rate and pay that completely off first. Take all of your money, make the minimum payments on everything you can, and focus all extra money on the highest interest rate, and focus everything you got on paying that down. And once you get that done, then you move on to the next one with the next highest interest rate. This is really important because you're paying all these extra fees, all this extra money, and if you get rid of that first highest APR thing, even if it has a high balance, you got to knock that out. And once you get that done, you have more money to put to the next one and the next one and the next one. And that's why it's called debt snowball, because you'll start to gain more and more momentum. So that is a great place to start. One simple way to do that is through the latte effect. So there's a book, I think it's called The Latte Effect, but essentially it's, if you go to Starbucks every day and you buy a latte for like $6.50 or whatever, if you think about the price of that, if you just drink coffee at home for 50 cents, you did that one little thing, you'd save $6 every day. $6 a day times 30 days is $180 a month. Times 12 months, whatever that is. That's over $1,800. It's about $2,000, $2,000 a year. If you could put that into an investment account every year or to paying off your highest interest credit card or debt, that would have a massive, massive effect. Imagine if you had an extra $2,000 a year that you could pay off a credit card or a loan or something like that. So those are two simple ways to get started, and we'll dive deeper into those concepts in other videos where we focus a lot. The next piece you want to get into is paying yourself first. So one thing about the rich, and one thing about the US government is they're very smart and they focus on getting paid first. So if you're an employee, you know that your taxes are taken out of your paycheck automatically. The US government does not trust you to wait to the end of the year and say you owe us $12,000, $5,000, whatever. They know that we're not going to have that at the end of the month, and it's going to be a struggle to get that from us. So what they do is they automatically take that money out of our check and they pay themselves first. I want you to be like the US government in this regard and pay yourself first. So when you get your paycheck, you need to allocate amount of money that you're going to pay yourself first into a separate savings account. And we'll talk about what to do with that later. And you need to commit to this every month, no matter what. This can't change. So if you think about what most people do, they have their inputs. I make $2,000 a month, $10,000 a month, or whatever. And they have their outputs. These are my expenses. And I'm going to take whatever's left over and put it in an account. Whatever's left over. That is not a plan, right? So what happens? What ends up being left over? Nothing. All the time. Barely anything. Scraps. What you got to do is commit to, okay, I'm going to save $100 a month, $20 a month, $3,000 a month, whatever the number is. You have to commit to something and make it automatic. It has to pay you every month. It has to go to a separate account that you do not see, not in your normal bank account, and it has to be automatic. There's a book called The Automatic Millionaire, which I really recommend. It's all about this topic, a whole book just focused on this, and it's really helpful. This has to happen because you will always find a way to spend money on things you don't need before you pay yourself, unless it's automatic. You got to create a system out of this. And then we just got to change the mindset about buying things, only buying things that make us money. We don't need inflatable hot tubs. That was my big thing. We don't need a bunch of kitchen gadgets. Also my thing. We don't need a tons of mountain bikes and surfboards and all kinds of stuff. These are all my things. I hope you're picking up on this by now. I had a ton of hobbies and I spent money on stuff I just didn't need. And when I shifted my mindset to only buying things that make me money, and then you buy things, the toys and stuff with that money, I just became so much freer, and I have money left over for the first time ever. So really cool. So we got to change that energy. We got to change that mindset. So that's paying yourself first. Next steps, we're gonna have to cut this one short. We're gonna have to just tell you about it, and then we'll get into it in the next one. So we'll do the financial literacy and personal finance step 2. That's gonna get into investing, types of accounts, and a little bit about advanced topics. So we're gonna dive into that into the second video because this is just getting a little long, and to be honest, I don't trust your attention span to be that long. So we have the free webinar coming up. Like I said, click that. We're going to dive deep into this topic and much more stuff. Click that. It's totally free. Just sign up and hang out with us. We've got the free budget template. Totally free. Click that. That's also in the description. Grab that if you don't have a budget template right now. That's going to be a really simple place to start and get you rolling on that and get you a really clear picture, honest, true picture of where you're actually at, which is so important. And if this really spoke to you, if this is really something that you're struggling with and this is just your vibe, there's also a link down below to book a call with me. And we can chat about our Lion's Tail mentorship program, our 90-day transformation program, which has a big piece about financial literacy in there and also a bunch about self-discipline, self-growth, and all the things that you really need to transform into the man you've always dreamed of being so that you can live the life you've always dreamed of living, which is so important. And finance is such a big component of this. So if this really resonated with you, just click that link down below, book a call with me, and we'll just chat and see if it's a good fit for you. So I will see you in the next one, which I'm going to record right now, I promise you. And I want you to adopt this mantra. This is my favorite mantra. You can think of today as one day. One day, I'm going to get this budget going. One day, I'm going to get out of debt. One day, I'm going to do that. Or you can think of this as day one. Today is day one. I'm going to get out of debt starting today. This is day one. So I want you to go from one day to day one and take some action right now. I hope you enjoyed it. Cheers.